This is the SBL, a beautiful blaster designed and produced by Gavinfuzzy Customs. Hey, what's up good people? Welcome to another episode of Pwned. Same backdrop, same framing, but everything else has been changed. A slightly different camera angle, different lighting setup, and of course a different microphone setup that's right here. And I honestly hope this turns out good. I'm just trying, I've always been trying, and yeah, fingers crossed. Anyway, it is my first video of 2021 and I've been waiting and wanting to feature this blaster here on the channel. And of course, we are talking about the SBL by Gavinfuzzy Customs. Now, this version that I have on hand is the SBL-F. That F stands for full length. There is also an SBL-H variant, H for half darts. Now, I got the hardware and prints from Gavin directly, but I assembled it myself. And I've also added some of the accessories on my own. For example, this vertical grip up here and this worker collapsible stock here, as well as the LaRue indexing clips on top just for aesthetics. Now for this video, I'm going to try and structure things a little bit, and hopefully if this structure works, then I will be applying this structure across every other video that I create from now on. So for the first part, I will go over the aesthetics and the overall design of the blaster, and the second will be talking about my experience with the blaster. For example, if there was an assembly, how did the assembly go? If I have been using it in a game, how have I felt about it being used in the game, things like that. Following that, it will be a firing demonstration, and yes guys, I got a crony now, so I should be able to give you some sort of FPS readings, but don't expect too much because FPS readings are just really a benchmark, I say, like a guideline to kind of... The reason why I never really cared about FPS readings of a blaster is because I don't think that FPS is a very good way to measure performance of a blaster or to gauge performance of a blaster. In my opinion, there's one too many variables, but I mean, I guess everyone's using FPS as a sort of a guideline, so I decided that I would add them in whenever I can from now on, since I bought myself a crony. Following that will be any extra features of the blaster, anything that I really want to point out that is worth highlighting. And last but not least is if I had a chance to speak with the maker or designer of the blaster, then I'll be providing you information about the blaster that is not featured on the blaster itself. Let's start by talking about the aesthetics of the blaster. This blaster design is just so trademark Gavinfuzzy style. If you are a fan of Gavin's designs, whether or not it is just a simple pump grip, or for example, if you like the SPAMF and you're really into that aesthetic, this is totally in Gavin's style. You've got all these like V-shaped motifs here, the angles, these faux screw designs. Everything about this is just 100% Gavin, and I'm a fan of his design aesthetic, and I really like the aesthetics of this blaster. So going from the front, here is a scar barrel. This is Gavin's style of the scar barrel. Then there is a barrel and a shroud here going all the way to the main part of the body. Here is the mag well and the middle piece. Moving on, here we have the plunger section. Then we have the main trigger grip and the trigger guard here, as well as the trigger. Then on the back here we have an adjustable stock. Now this particular stock is the worker adjustable stock. There is another option for this on another variant, and I will show that to you in a short while. And along the top of the blaster is a full-length Picatinny rail, like literally full length all the way till here. Cool thing that I want to point out about the mag release lever is that it can be actuated in two ways. The first would be this lever here, where you could just push forward with your thumb on your non-master hand and grab your mag and pull it up, or you could just use your middle finger and push forward on it to actuate it. And the next is this trigger guard area over here. You could just push down, and you could also actuate the mag release lever. Now personally, I don't quite like this action over here, pushing down with my index finger. I find it a little bit counterintuitive, so I just usually push forward with my middle finger instead. That's the most comfortable, but the fact that this offers 3 or possibly more ways of removing your mags, that's some really good design. Overall, I love the aesthetics of the blaster. You've got all these slots featured here on the scar, and then there are also slots on the shroud. There are also these like grooves here on the front of the mag well. You've got the triangle motif here. You've got the SBL marking here. This one says SBL-F on both sides, by the way. You've got some faux screw designs. You've got very angular lines all the way across. Then you've got a clear plunger tube. And then you have more screw designs on the back. You've got some faux screw designs around the trigger area as well. You've got an accent color here on the side of your trigger grip. Then you've got some slots on the back here and an adjustable stock, which is just... This is also a very compact blaster. Now, if I take the measurements from the start of the barrel, not the scar, just the main barrel itself, all the way to the back of the spring rest here, not including the stock, the blaster is roughly about 65 centimeters, and that in my opinion is really compact for what it is. Now, I didn't think that I needed to point this out to you guys, but this is a pump action blaster, and it's got the mag well here, so it's not a bullpup style design. Even though I'm a fan of bullpup blasters and I generally pick bullpup style blasters over standard blaster styles, when I saw this I was like, I need one of these. And then slowly watching and interacting with the beta testers and looking at their SBLs, I was like, okay, this seals the deal. I'm definitely going to get myself an SBL. Now really quickly, let's talk about the stock. This collapsible stock is a worker collapsible stock. This does not come with the SBL. You have to purchase this on your own, and you got to take out not just this part of the worker stock, but also this button over here and some of the springs on the inside. And I must say that the worker stock works perfectly with Gavin's design, and it offers you 4 or more points of adjustability. And the reason why I said 4 or more is because this is in the fully collapsed position, and I guess I should consider that as 1 point as well. But yeah, this is considered 1 point. Okay, so I'll say 5 points of adjustability. So this is the first one, and then you've got it extended slightly out here a little bit. Next point will be like this, and this is personally the most comfortable position for myself. Then we've got the next one. This is point number 4, and then fully extended, point number 5. So for those of you who are taller and have longer arms than I do, this is going to be really awesome for you because I'm not used to this length. This kind of reminds me of a standard Caliburn that in my opinion is a little bit long for my liking because I have to stretch my priming hand all the way out, and this is a little bit uncomfortable. So the beauty in this stock is that it offers you 5 points of adjustment, and this is my favorite because it offers me a lot more comfort. I don't have to stretch my arm out too far, and this is also very comfortable resting against my shoulder. Now, since I mentioned this, I'm going to show you guys the other variant that you can opt for in terms of the stock attachment preference. And that is in the form of this, which is a standard buffer tube type attachment. So there's 2 pieces that are easy to swap out once you understand how to assemble and disassemble the SBL. But I gotta say, the fact that this is also available is really cool because I know that a lot of people out there are huge fans of, for example, CTR stocks like that. And they fit perfectly. And this also offers you multiple adjustment points, a total of 4. There are 4 slots here on this buffer tube, and this is really for those of you who want to use these style of stocks. For both of these stock attachment styles, there are sling points on either side, which is always a plus point. Now, there are a couple of reasons why I went for the worker stock attachment style instead of the standard buffer tube style, and that's because mainly number 1, it's for aesthetics. I really like this skeletonized design of worker stock attachment, plus the back here is this honeycomb thing. I think it's quite cool, and it also offers you a very minimalistic skeletal style design on the back here overall. And next is also another design driven decision, and that's because this part of the worker stock just travels over this spring rest area perfectly. Let me just show it to you guys. Look at that. It just sleeves on top perfectly, and you get to see a bit of that spring rest peeking out of this window cut slot here on the stock. Now, on to my experience with the blaster. I assembled this myself. Gavin printed all the parts and provided the hardware for me. Now note, I purchased this from him, and I decided that I wanted to make a video and just talk about this because I think it's a really great blaster, and I hope that this video serves as a point of reference for anyone who's interested in getting the SBL or one of the SBL variants. Now, I'm no expert and I'm not very experienced in the field of assembling 3D printed blasters. If I were to give a name for someone who's really an expert, I would say it has to be Piggy because of the sheer amount of blasters he's put together. Maybe also Duncan, Harrods, Abner, Paul, Snowy, Tim. I mean, there are a lot more Nerfers out there who do a lot of builds here in Singapore, and I apologize for not being able to mention every single person's name, but I think that I've built my fair share of blasters, starting from the JSPB blasters way back, all the way till today where I'm talking about building this one as well as the F-Tech one. Stay tuned for that. I plan to make a video on that blaster sometime soon. But I must say that the assembly of the SBL was a joy. There were certain parts where I was a little bit confused because Gavin sent me what seems to be a beta version of the instructions manual, but it was straightforward, really easy to follow, and I got this whole thing built up without any major problems at all. And it was really fun because I think I shared this with you guys before. When I was building or assembling the JSPB blasters, just the assembly itself kind of gives you a slight insight into the designer or the creator's mind. This gave me an insight into Gavin's mind, and his design choices, his design decisions are really awesome. Now, this thing is held in by some long rods, as you can see, but in this particular blaster, the centerpiece is here, this magwell area. This entire blaster kind of like sits here. This is the core of it, and then the rods connect from the back to the middle piece, and as well from the barrel, from the front all the way to the middle piece. which means that if you want to change this out from the SBL-H version or F version into the other variant, you just got to take out the respective sides, and these can all stay in this sort of block. And then you can swap out the middle part. Of course, it's not that straightforward when you're converting between the two variants, because there are other things that you have to take note of as well. For example, the RAM assembly has to be of the correct size. But for me, when I experienced that, I was like, wow, this is really cool. The thing that I want to point out though is that this top rail here, this is the big brain part. This top rail, or at least the main section of the top rail, is actually held in by the main structural rod, not standard screws from the top. Granted, there are some screw points here on the front for the smaller pieces and for the middle part over here, but for the main length of this thing, there's no screws involved. And I was like, what? It's so cool. It's so seamless because it just looks like one straight whole Picatinny rail like that. So I think Gavin really outdid himself on this one. Now, talking a little bit more about the build, mine, like I said, has a scar barrel, and I've also attached a vertical grip over here. Gavin also offers a printed angled foregrip if you want to go for that. I initially got this printed because, you know, this blue is so beautiful, right? But in the end, I was like, yeah, I feel more comfortable with a molded vertical grip, so I went for that instead. Also, here are some other printed parts, and you can tell just by one look that these are the different type of RAM assemblies, as well as a plunger. I don't know if you guys still call this a plunger head, but a plunger head, printed plunger head over here. And that's because I'm using an acetal plunger head as well as a metal RAM assembly. These are also being offered by Gavin. The acetal plunger head also comes with a metal spring guide on the back here. Now, you can't really see it because it's inside the blaster, but it comes with a metal spring guide. Now, the last, but in my opinion, biggest big brain feature of Gavin's design, or at least his choices in terms of this build, is the way these rods are all held in place. These are held in place with a combination of a spring washer and a standard washer. If you look closely at every single point here, you actually see two different washers. This is, in my opinion, a big brain idea, like one of the biggest features about this, because having that spring washer and a standard washer combination means that you don't actually have to use Loctite to hold your rods in place. That itself provides you the tension to make sure that the rods are held in and won't start to undo themselves when your blaster starts rattling. And for me, that is such a simple and elegant yet smart design. Gavin really... Okay, I gotta give you like 2 thumbs up on that. So 2 thumbs up plus a scar barrel for that. That's the biggest big brain feature on this blaster, in my opinion. Alright, let's get a firing demonstration done before I talk a little bit about the FPS that I got from this blaster. And I'll be firing off 4 full-length darts from a full-length mag, and these are ACC darts, which are not of the best dart fit, so I'm not going to be firing off very quickly because I want to make sure that it feeds properly, right? I do apologize because these are just whatever I could grab on hand. And that's also the beauty of the dog bone style ram rod. You don't have to worry about whether or not your blaster is primed. You can easily remove and insert your mag. Just awesome, right? So here we go. I'm going to make sure that it feeds properly. Okay, not too fast, I'm sorry. There we go, all 4 out with no problems at all. I gotta say that I apologize for not having the right darts on hand. Yeah, it's just a bad dart fit. ACC darts aren't the best, you know what I mean? But at least it shows you that full-length darts are not a problem. And next, of course, is a question that I got when I posted this blaster on Reddit. And that is, can I still use half-length darts via a mag adapter in this blaster? And the answer is yes. So in here are 6 half-length darts of varying styles. I've got some flat tips, some waffle tips, some soft tips, silicone tips. It's just a mixture of different stuff in here. And again, just to point out that the dog bone ram rod works perfectly well even with a mag adapter and your half-length mag. Here we go, all 6. Let's do this. All 6 out. I don't know why I had to prime it, but yeah, all 6 out. Well, since it is primed, you could easily deprime the blaster in the standard way. There is no slam fire feature on this blaster, so just hold the pump grip back, squeeze the trigger, and slowly release your prime. Now let's talk about the FPS test that I conducted and the overall readings that I got. Now I must preface you guys and tell you that this is my first time actually setting up the Crony at home and trying things out. I did a total of 4 different FPS tests, 2 for full length and 2 for half lengths. For each dart length, 1 will be with a scar and 1 will be without a scar. So basically, full length darts without a scar, full length darts with a scar, half-length darts without a scar, half-length darts with a scar. And the scar in question is this particular one that was printed and designed by Gavin, but I stringed it up on my own. For each of those tests, I fired off a total of 10 darts, and I used fresh bamboo darts from the Dart Zone Pro Mark 1.1. I apologize for not using the standard Adventure Force darts because I don't have access to them. I ordered a couple hundred half-length Adventure Force darts and they're on the way here to Singapore. But in my opinion, bamboo darts are some of the better darts in the market right now, and so I use fresh ones because I never use the Dart Zone Mark 1.1 anyway. And I'd like to apologize at this point because due to my inexperience, out of the 10 darts that were fired for each FPS test, there were 1 or maybe 2 darts that actually hit the side of the inner wall of the crony, and that led to pretty bad readings. So in order to get a more realistic average FPS reading, I will not be counting those misfired, quote-unquote misfired shots into the average. You should be seeing the results on screen right now because there's going to be a lot for me to talk through if I read everything out. But just for transparency, again, I'm going to highlight that I was using fresh bamboo darts, and I'm using the barrel that Gavin actually provided with this kit. This is a 30cm long barrel, and the spring that I was using is an SF25TC spring. In blue, by the way, because I wanted it to fit the aesthetic of this build. Now we move on to some additional points about the blaster that I want to talk about, and that would be the conversion between this full-length version into the half-length variant, or the SBL-H. Now for the purpose of this video, I actually have the SBL-H magwell section printed out so that you guys can compare and contrast. So I hope that this gives you guys a good idea about the size difference between the SBL-F and H variants. Now for the H variant, this is going to be compatible with both Katanas and Talon mags, and that is done by way of the same mechanism that is featured in the SPAMF. In case you guys don't have any experience using a SPAMF, that blaster also features the same dual compatibility between Katanas and Talon mags. So it's gonna have that same mag feature, which is really cool. This is just the middle section over here. There are some other parts that you have to change out, namely the actual teeth that lock your mag in place, as well as the different length of the ramrod, ram base assembly, and some sections of the Picatinny rail. Another interesting feature that I want to point out is the spring guide. Now this spring guide actually sits on the inside of the blaster, so you don't see it from the outside. Now the printed version of the spring guide that comes with the standard prints of the SBL features this really cool design. It's like a muzzle brake kind of design, but then it also has a K25 marking over here. And I asked Gavin about it, like, if this has a K25 marking, then does it mean that this is specifically made to be used with K25 springs? What if I want to use other springs? And he said that it's because this was actually done during the beta testing, where he had multiple variants of the spring guides to be compatible with the various springs that the beta testers were using, because each spring has a different ID. And so he had a bunch of these that were designed to be used for those, and he had the markings on each so that the beta testers wouldn't get confused. But at the end of the day, this kind of looked cool, so he decided to keep that in. And that's really interesting because I think it really adds on to the overall aesthetic of this. Even though it's an internal piece, when you build it and you put it in, you actually know about it, and it's like a feature that kind of sticks with you. You get what I mean? Next thing that I want to highlight is that this barrel is held in by 3 grub screws, 2 on the top, 1 at the bottom, like a Y-shaped 3-point grip. And I think that's cool because it means that you could easily change out your barrel to any other sort of barrel that you like. Now you could go for a longer barrel, shorter barrel, whatever you want, but this barrel that came with the hardware kit is measuring in at 30 centimeters long. Next, I want to talk about this scar barrel. Now, I bought this scar as a separate piece. I do not think that it comes bundled with this blaster if you're purchasing a fully assembled blaster. What I like about this is that it comes in 2 main parts. The area that interfaces with your barrel, aka the stringed area, and then this sleeve over here that covers it up and hides all the exposed fishing line. In case exposed fishing lines is something that really irks you, this is the way to go because this is a really elegant way of covering that up. It's held in by 1 small little machine screw over here, but apart from that, the overall aesthetic of this is just amazing. Triangular shaped, goes so well with the entire blaster, and because of its printed nature apart from the fishing line itself, this offers you a lot of customizability options, and you could easily match it with the overall build of your blaster. Now we need to add that the blaster actually comes with a spring. I forgot exactly what spring this is that comes bundled with the hardware kit. I will flash it on screen so that I can give you guys more accurate information about that. But as you guys have seen so far, I opted not to go with this spring. I am using an SF25TC spring in my SBL. And now comes the fun part. In my opinion at least, this is the most fun part about making this video, and that is the part where I threw Gavin a whole bunch of questions and he has the answers for me. And I think that this additional information will not only be interesting for you, but also informative, because well, it's from the mind of Gavin, right? Informative information. I don't know what I'm saying, guys. I'm sorry, but you guys get what I mean. And the first question is, so many people are asking about the SBL and where to get it. Is there any information that you want to share about availability? So far, I've been telling people to reach out to you directly. And so Gavin says that for a wider release, he hasn't decided how he will go about it, but anyone who PMs him on his Gavinfuzzy Customs Facebook page, he will reach out to you and advise you accordingly. And so in line with that, I'll put links to his Facebook page and his Etsy page in the description box down below. If you're interested in getting one, make sure that you reach out to him, especially if you're not a local Singaporean nerfer. Just reach out to him and I'm sure that he'll get back to you. To add on to that point, when it's ready for sale, Gavin will be offering both just hardware kits and fully assembled builds. However, just a caveat here, for any international orders, Gavin will not be able to ship out a fully assembled SBL. Instead, he will ship it out the hardware plus the prints, just the same way that I received mine. Then you just have to assemble it yourself. But take my word for it, it is a really fun build. The next question I asked Gavin is about the additional parts, the add-on stuff like the AFG, the scar barrel, and about the additional spring. And so here is the information that I was looking for with regards to the spring that came with the hardware kit. That spring is a K25 spring that he procured from out of darts. Now for every other thing that I mentioned, for example the scar barrel or the printed angled foregrip, these are all accessories that you have to add on to your overall order. The next question that I asked is about the dog bone feature on the ramrod. Now I know some of you might be probably thinking, wait a minute, isn't that like Van James's design? Isn't that like the Vanguard style? So here's the answer for you. It is licensed by Vantage Point Systems. So apart from the big brain ideas and features that I told you guys about so far, Gavin's personal favorite is the fact that this is done in a way to accommodate workers' stock. I'm going to be reading to you what Gavin wrote here. He says, so a lot of position of stuff had to be worked around the worker's metal release button. Basically, I wanted to have a realistically proportioned profile without a large rear end. And I have to say, the end result. So here's my overall verdict. This blaster is coming in at about the $200 US range. I may be wrong, so make sure that you speak to Gavin about the pricing, because I can only offer you an estimate since everything here is in Singapore dollars. And for that price point, and with the modularity that you have in this blaster, the different stock options, the different magwell size options, the compatibility with upgrade parts, the overall size of 65 centimeters, and mind you, 65 centimeters is with reference to this full length variant. To me, for that price point, it's super worth it. And I can't stress this enough, but I'm a super proud owner of the SBL. It's been a long time coming because I was waiting for the beta testing period to be over and for him to be comfortable enough to be releasing this out for sale in the market. And the fact that not only is Gavin a local Singaporean nerfer, but he's also a personal friend of mine, and for him to design a full blaster and come up with a product like this is his first venture in creating a full blaster from scratch. That just brings me back full circle to my point that I really love the SBL. I'm so happy that there is a full-length version here, and the full-length version is completely compatible with half-length adapter mags as well, and gives you substantial performance for what it is. I'm really enjoying this blaster. And that is it, we've come to the end of this video. I hope that you found this not only informative but entertaining as well. Stay tuned for the next video. I plan to make one on the F-Tech 1 by Foam Technician. But once again, thank you for watching all the way from start to end. I really appreciate you coming on this journey with me, and I will see you in the next video. Drills pay the bills and teamwork makes the dream work. Peace.